At 11:47 p.m. on March 15th, 2019, a subway conductor in New York City made a 911 call that was immediately classified. The recording was never released to the public. Until now. What he saw on that train changed him forever. And tonight, you're going to find out why some stations are removed from maps for reasons that have nothing to do with renovations. Picture this. You're alone on a late-night subway. The lights flicker. The train slows down at a platform that's not on your route. The doors open. And standing on that abandoned platform is a crowd of people in clothes from decades past, staring directly at you. Not moving, not blinking, just waiting. This isn't fiction. This happened to 73 documented passengers over the last 60 years, and the Transit Authority has been covering it up. My name is Marcus, and I'm about to tell you the story of Platform Zero, the station that doesn't exist, but never stopped operating. Our story begins in 1952, in the heart of Manhattan. The New York City Transit Authority was expanding the subway system at a breakneck pace. Construction crews were drilling through bedrock 24 hours a day. But on August 3rd, during a routine excavation between the 6th Avenue and 8th Avenue lines, workers broke through into something that shouldn't have been there. A fully constructed station platform, complete with tile work, benches, and vintage light fixtures. But here's the thing. There were no blueprints for this station, no permits, no records of its construction whatsoever. The lead foreman, a man named Victor Kozlov, a Russian immigrant who'd worked on subway projects since 1945, immediately knew something was wrong. The architectural style was accurate to the 1920s, but the materials used were impossible. The tiles contained a ceramic compound that wouldn't be invented until 1947. The light fixtures were electric, but used a wiring system that didn't match any known standard of that era or any era after. Victor documented everything. He took photographs, grainy black and white images that still exist in a private collection today. In these photos, you can see something else. Something the construction crew didn't notice until they developed the film. In the background of every single photograph, there are shadows on the platform. Human-shaped shadows. But when these photos were taken, Victor was absolutely certain, he swore it on his daughter's life, that the platform was completely empty. The Transit Authority made a decision within 48 hours. The station was to be sealed, concreted over, and erased from all official documentation. The construction crew was dispersed to different projects across the city. Each worker was given a significant cash bonus and required to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Victor Kozlov refused to sign. 3 weeks later, he disappeared. His body was found 6 months after that in a subway tunnel near Times Square. The official cause of death was listed as accidental electrocution. But Victor's daughter, Elena, who's now 89 years old and living in Brooklyn, told me something different. She said that the night before her father died, he came home terrified, repeating the same phrase over and over. They're still waiting at Platform Zero. They've been waiting so long, and they're angry that we found them. Now, you might think that's where the story ends. A creepy discovery, a convenient cover-up, an unexplained death. But Platform Zero had other plans. Because even though it was sealed off in 1952, trains kept finding their way there. The first documented incident occurred on November 19, 1958. A late-night F train was traveling between West 4th Street and 14th Street. There were only 7 passengers on board. The conductor, James Mitchell, a 22-year veteran of the subway system, noticed that the train was slowing down between stations, something that occasionally happened due to signal delays. But what he saw through his window made his blood run cold. The train was pulling into a fully lit platform, a platform he'd never seen before in 22 years of running this exact route. James later described it in a statement to his supervisor. The platform was immaculate. Art Deco tilework in deep greens and golds. Wooden benches polished to a shine. Old-style advertisement posters on the walls, but the products they advertised didn't exist. There was an ad for something called Eternal Transit, Your Journey Never Ends. Another showed a smiling family with the caption, Make Platform Zero your final destination. But what haunted James for the rest of his life, he died in 1993, and his granddaughter shared his personal journals with me, was the people on the platform. He counted 47 individuals. Men in suits and fedoras from the 1920s and 30s. Women in flapper dresses. Children in old-fashioned school clothes. A newsboy holding papers dated October 29th, 1929, the day of the stock market crash. They were all standing completely still, facing the train. Their eyes were open, but James said they weren't quite right. He described them as cloudy, like cataracts, but moving, like something was swimming behind their eyes. The train doors opened. This is crucial. James didn't open them. He was frozen in the conductor's cabin. The doors opened themselves. And one of the passengers from the train, a businessman named Robert Chen, later reported what happened next. He said the people on the platform began to move, in perfect unison, taking one step toward the train, then another. Their movements were synchronized, mechanical. Robert said he could hear them breathing, all 47 of them, in the exact same rhythm, like one massive lung inhaling and exhaling. Then, just as suddenly, the doors closed. The platform lights went dark, and the train lurched forward, back into the normal tunnel. When it arrived at 14th Street, James Mitchell radioed for emergency assistance. Transit police interviewed all 7 passengers. Their stories matched perfectly. Too perfectly, according to the report. Word for word identical in some cases, as if they'd all witnessed the exact same event from the exact same perspective, which should have been impossible given their different positions in the train car. The transit authorities' response? They claimed it was a case of mass hysteria, possibly caused by a carbon monoxide leak in the tunnel. All 7 passengers were given medical evaluations and generous settlements in exchange for their silence. James Mitchell was placed on psychiatric leave. But here's what the transit authority didn't know. James had broken protocol. He'd taken something from the conductor's cabin that night. A Polaroid camera he kept for photographing mechanical issues. And in those frantic moments at the platform, he'd snapped one photo. I've seen this photograph. It currently sits in a safety deposit box in a bank in Queens, held by James Mitchell's granddaughter. She allowed me to examine it under strict conditions. No copies, no phones, just my eyes and 10 minutes. What I saw in that image will haunt me forever. The platform was visible, exactly as James described. The people were there too, all 47 of them. But in the photograph, they weren't looking at the train. They were looking up at the ceiling of the station. And on that ceiling, scratched into the tile in letters 6 feet high, were words: "The last stop for those who cannot leave." Over the next 60 years, incidents continued. I've collected 23 credible testimonies from subway workers, passengers, and even one transit police officer. Each story follows a disturbing pattern. In 1967, a young woman named Patricia Summers was riding the A train home from a late shift at a hospital. She was a nurse, trained to be observant and rational. At approximately 1:15 a.m. between 59th Street and 125th Street, her train stopped at Platform 0. Patricia's account is particularly detailed because she did something no one else had done. She got off the train. She told investigators that she felt compelled to step onto the platform. Not physically forced, but psychologically drawn, as if someone was calling her name in a voice just below the threshold of hearing. The moment her foot touched the platform, she said the temperature dropped at least 30 degrees. She could see her breath. The people on the platform, she counted 63 this time, more than James had seen in 1958, all turned to face her simultaneously. Patricia described their appearance. They looked solid, real, but wrong. Like a photograph that's been overexposed. Their edges were too sharp. Their shadows fell in directions that didn't match the light sources. And their clothes, they were from different eras. I saw a man in a Revolutionary War uniform standing next to a woman in a 1950s poodle skirt, standing next to a teenager in 1960s hippie gear. But they all have the same expression: desperate, hungry, lost. Then one of them spoke. Patricia swears it was a child, a little girl no more than 8 years old, wearing a school uniform from the 1930s. The girl said, "Please take our place. We've been waiting so long, just for one stop. Just let us ride for one stop, and you can wait here. It won't be long. Others always come." Patricia ran back to the train. The doors were starting to close. She threw herself through the gap, and the train pulled away. She looked back at the platform through the rear window of the car. The crowd had moved to the edge of the platform, watching the train depart. And the little girl was at the front of the crowd, waving goodbye with one hand. With her other hand, she was pointing at Patricia. And one by one, the other figures on the platform raised their arms and pointed too. Patricia reported the incident immediately. Unlike previous witnesses, she was not interviewed by transit police, but by 3 men in dark suits who identified themselves only as Federal Transit Safety Inspectors. They confiscated her nursing credentials temporarily, subjected her to a 6-hour interview, and returned her credentials with a warning. Speaking about this incident to anyone would result in federal prosecution under an obscure transportation security law. But Patricia broke her silence in 2003 in a deathbed confession recorded by her minister. She was dying of cancer and said she needed to warn people. In that recording, which I obtained from the minister's personal files, Patricia revealed something she hadn't told the men in suits. After that night on Platform 0, she began to see one of the figures from the platform. The little girl. Not in person, but in reflections, in subway windows, in mirrors, in any reflective surface when she was underground. The girl was always pointing, always watching. This continued for 36 years, until Patricia stopped using the subway entirely in 1993. But the most chilling testimony I've uncovered comes from 1982, from a transit worker named David Kowalski. David was part of a track maintenance crew doing overnight repairs. At 3:47 a.m., his crew was working on a section of tunnel between two stations on the D line. David's job was to walk ahead of the crew with a lamp, checking for structural issues. That's when he found it. A door in the tunnel wall. Not a maintenance door. Those are clearly marked and familiar to any track worker. This was different. An old wooden door, the kind you'd see in a 1920s apartment building, completely out of place in a subway tunnel. And it was slightly open. David did what any curious person would do. He pushed it open. Behind that door was a staircase leading up. The stairs were covered in dust so thick that David said it looked like gray carpet. But here's what made him stop cold. There were footprints in the dust. Fresh footprints. Bare feet. Multiple sets. Men, women, children. And they led up the stairs. David followed them. He told himself he was being stupid, that he should get his crew, but something pulled him forward. The staircase went up for what he estimated was about 40 feet, then opened into platform 0. Now, remember, this is 1982. The platform had supposedly been sealed in 1952, 30 years earlier. But David found it pristine. The lights were on, those old incandescent bulbs glowing warmly. There was even music playing, faint, like it was coming from old speakers. Big band music from the 1940s. And there were personal belongings scattered on the platform. A briefcase, a child's teddy bear, a woman's handbag. David opened the handbag. He admitted this was probably wrong, but curiosity overwhelmed him. Inside was a wallet with a driver's license. The license belonged to a woman named Margaret Holloway. The issue date was April 3rd, 1931, but the license appeared new, barely worn. David took the license. He put it in his pocket. He still has it, by the way, I've seen it, and turned to leave. That's when he heard the sound. A train approaching. But not from the tunnel he'd come from the opposite direction. From a tunnel he could now see at the far end of the platform. A tunnel that, according to every map of the subway system, should not exist. The train that pulled into platform 0 was unlike any subway train David had ever seen. It was old, a model from the 1930s, but it looked brand new, perfectly maintained. The windows glowed with warm light, and inside he could see passengers, dozens of them, sitting, standing, reading newspapers, talking to each other, a completely normal scene, except a train was transparent. David could see through the train car bodies to the tunnel wall behind them. The train stopped. The doors opened, and every passenger inside turned to look directly at David. They smiled. In perfect unison, they smiled. And then they began to exit the train. David ran. He sprinted back down that staircase, through the wooden door, into the tunnel where his crew was working. When he told his supervisor what he'd seen, the supervisor made a phone call. Within 20 minutes, people arrived. Not transit authority, not police. The same type of people Patricia had described, men in dark suits with federal credentials that they showed, but didn't allow anyone to examine closely. The wooden door in the tunnel was welded shut that same night. David's entire crew was transferred to different departments, and David was told, in no uncertain terms, that Platform 0 was a classified installation related to Cold War civil defense protocols, and that trespassing into that area again would result in federal charges. But here's the kicker. David did some research. He looked up Margaret Holloway, the woman whose license he'd taken. He found her, or rather, he found her missing person report. Margaret Holloway disappeared on April 15, 1931, after boarding a subway train in Manhattan. She was never seen again. The case was never solved. David found 17 other missing person cases matching the same pattern. People who disappeared between 1923 and 1975, all last seen boarding subway trains, all vanishing without a trace. 17 people. And David swears he saw at least 17 passengers on that ghost train in Platform Zero. At this point, you're probably wondering, is any of this real? Is Platform Zero an actual place, or is this an urban legend that's been embellished over decades? I wondered the same thing. So I did what any investigative journalist would do. I started digging into the official records. What I found was a pattern of erasure, not just of Platform Zero itself, but of anything connected to it. Property records for certain sections of the subway system are missing pages. Construction blueprints have gaps. Transit Authority meeting minutes from the 1950s have entire sections redacted. And when I filed Freedom of Information Act requests for the unredacted versions, I was told the documents were lost in a fire in 1978. How convenient. But digital records are harder to erase completely. Working with a data analyst who specializes in recovering corrupted government files, I found something fascinating. In the Transit Authority's maintenance database, there are regular inspection reports for a station identified only as PZ-00. These inspections happen every 6 months. The most recent was logged 3 weeks ago. The reports are brief, usually just a single line. PZ-00 status contained. No breaches. No incidents. Contained. That's the word they use. Not closed, not sealed. Contained. As if Platform Zero is something alive that needs to be kept under control. I also discovered something in electrical grid records. There's a subsection of the subway power system that draws electricity 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's been doing this since records began in 1955. The amount of power is consistent with what would be needed to light and operate a full subway station. But this power draw isn't attributed to any official station. It's listed in the budget as Legacy Infrastructure Maintenance. Then I found the proof I was looking for. A video. In 2019, an urban explorer named Tyler Chen, no relation to Robert Chen from the 1958 incident as far as I can tell, was documenting abandoned sections of the New York subway system for his YouTube channel. Tyler specialized in getting into areas the public isn't supposed to access. On May 4th, 2019, he posted a video titled, "I found a station that isn't on any map." The video was online for 47 minutes before it was removed. Tyler's entire channel was deleted. His social media accounts went dark. But I found someone who downloaded that video before it disappeared. And what I saw in that footage corroborates everything I've told you so far. Tyler's video shows him entering a maintenance tunnel through an access point near West 4th Street. He's using night vision because this section of tunnel has no lighting. He walks for approximately 12 minutes, his camera picking up the standard tunnel architecture, concrete walls, track beds, electrical conduits. Then he finds it. The wooden door David Kowalski described. The welding that had sealed it shut has been broken. The door is open. Tyler goes through. The staircase is there, exactly as described. And at the top, Platform Zero. But something has changed. The platform Tyler's camera reveals is deteriorating. The pristine condition reported in earlier decades is gone. The tiles are cracked. The benches are rotting. The light fixtures are broken, hanging from the ceiling by their wires. And there's graffiti on the walls. But not the typical spray-painted tags you see in abandoned stations. This graffiti is scratched into the tile, like someone used their fingernails or a sharp rock. The same message repeated hundreds of times across every available surface. Help us leave. Tyler pans his camera across the platform, and that's when the video gets truly disturbing. There are people on the platform. But they're not the pristine figures from earlier reports. These people look decayed. Their clothes are rotting. Their skin is gray. Some of them are missing parts, an arm, a leg, but they're still standing, still moving. And they all turn to face Tyler's camera simultaneously. One of them, a man in the remnants of a 1940s suit, walks toward Tyler. The man's mouth moves, and Tyler's camera microphone picks up the audio. Please, please, we just want to ride. Just one stop. Just to the next station. We need to leave. It won't let us leave. Help us. Tyler runs. The camera footage becomes shaky, chaotic. You can hear him breathing heavily, cursing, his feet pounding on the stairs. Then the video cuts to black. But the audio continues for another 30 seconds. And in that audio, you can hear voices. Dozens of voices, all speaking in unison, saying, "Thank you for visiting Platform 0. Your train will be arriving shortly. Please stand behind the yellow line. Please stand behind the yellow line. Please stand behind..." Then nothing. I tracked down Tyler Chen. It took me 3 months, but I found him. He's living in Portland, Oregon now, working at a bookstore. When I approached him and mentioned Platform 0, he had a panic attack. Right there in the bookstore, he collapsed. After he recovered, he agreed to speak with me, but only in a public place, during daytime, nowhere near any form of public transportation. Tyler told me that after he escaped Platform 0, things followed him. Not physically, but in other ways. He started receiving subway cards in the mail, even though he'd moved away from New York. The cards were all loaded with exactly one fare. The expiration date on every card was the same, December 31st, 1929. He showed me a box filled with at least 200 of these cards. He also told me that every night, at exactly 11:47 p.m., he hears subway sounds. The screech of brakes, the announcement of doors closing, the rumble of a train on tracks. It doesn't matter where he is, in his apartment, at work, even when he went camping in the middle of the wilderness. At 11:47 p.m., he hears a subway train. And sometimes, he hears the announcement, "Next stop, Platform 0. This is the final destination. All passengers must exit." Remember at the beginning, I mentioned a 911 call from March 15th, 2019? It's time I told you about that. The conductor who made that call was named Raymond Torres. Raymond had been working for the MTA for 33 years. He was months away from retirement, a model employee with a spotless record. On the night of March 15th, 2019, Raymond was conducting the last F train of the night, scheduled to complete its run at 12:30 a.m. According to the official report, Raymond called 911 at 11:52 p.m., reporting a medical emergency on the train. But that's not what the actual recording says. I obtained this recording through a source in the NYPD who wishes to remain anonymous. What you're about to hear is a transcript of that call, which lasted 4 minutes and 17 seconds. 911, I don't know what I need. I need someone to tell me I'm not crazy. Sir, what's your emergency? I'm a subway conductor, and my train just stopped at a station that doesn't exist. There are people on the platform, but they're not right. They're not alive, but they're moving, and they're trying to get on my train. Sir, what's your location? That's the thing. I don't know. My train stopped between stations, but there's a platform here. The sign says... Oh God. The sign says Platform 0. The doors are opening. I didn't open them. They're opening by themselves. Sir, I'm sending emergency services to... They're getting on the train. The dead people are getting on my train. There are passengers in the cars, real passengers. The dead people are sitting next to them. The real passengers can't see them. Oh, Jesus, one of the dead people just sat down next to a pregnant woman. And she doesn't react. She can't see it, but it's touching her. It's putting its hand on her stomach. Sir, I need you to stay calm. Help is... No, you don't understand. These things, they're whispering to the passengers. I can see their mouths moving. And the passengers are starting to react. They're getting up. They're walking toward the doors. They're going to get off at this platform. If they get off here, they're not coming back. I know it. I can feel it. There's a pause in the recording, lasting approximately 15 seconds. In the background, you can hear what sounds like old music playing, the same big band music David Kowalski reported. I have to close the doors. I have to close the doors and get us out of here. Sir, if there are passengers trying to exit, they don't know what they're doing. They're being called. Something on that platform is calling them. There's a woman standing at the far end of the platform. She's dressed like she's from 100 years ago. She's holding out her hands, and people are walking toward her like children. I'm closing the doors. Sound of doors closing. A mechanical grinding noise. The doors won't close. Something's blocking them. One of the dead people is standing in the doorway. It's looking at me, right at me. It's smiling. It's saying something. What is it saying? It's saying it's my turn. That I've been conducting these trains past Platform 0 for 33 years, and every time I passed, I was supposed to stop. But I never did. I never stopped. And now it's my turn to stay. Another pause. Then the sound of struggle. Raymond breathing heavily. I pushed it out. I pushed it back onto the platform, and I manually overrode the doors. We're moving. The train is moving. We're back in the normal tunnel. But what, sir? It's still here. The dead person I pushed. It's standing outside my conductor's cabin, looking at me through the window. And it's still smiling. It's holding up a pocket watch. The watch is running backwards. And when it reaches 0, oh God, when it reaches 0. When transit police and EMS arrived at the F train's final destination, they found the train stopped normally at the station. All passengers exited without incident. They reported nothing unusual about their journey, except for one detail that several of them mentioned. The train had stopped between stations for a few minutes, and during that stop, they'd heard beautiful music playing and felt an overwhelming sense of peace and desire to sleep. But Raymond Torres was gone. His conductor's cabin was empty. His uniform jacket was still hanging on its hook. His coffee thermos was still warm. But Raymond had vanished. The MTA launched an investigation. They reviewed security footage from every station on the F line that night. Raymond Torres doesn't appear on any of it after the train left 42nd Street at 11:40 p.m.
It's as if he simply ceased to exist somewhere between 42nd Street and the train's final destination. But 3 days after Raymond's disappearance, a transit worker found something on the track bed near West 4th Street. It was a conductor's hat. Raymond's hat, identified by the employee number stitched inside. And tucked into the hatband was a pocket watch, an antique pocket watch. The watch was running, but backwards. And engraved on the back were the words, "Platform Zero, where every journey ends." Raymond Torres has never been found. The official MTA statement says he abandoned his post and is wanted for questioning. His family knows better. I spoke with his daughter, Maria Torres. She told me that the night before her father disappeared, he called her. He told her he'd been seeing things on his late-night runs, a station that appeared and disappeared, faces in the tunnel walls. And most disturbing of all, he'd been finding notes in his conductor's cabin. Handwritten notes that appeared when he wasn't looking. The notes all said the same thing. "You've passed us too many times, Raymond. Next time, you must stop. Next time, you must stay." So where does this leave us? Is Platform Zero still there? Are people still disappearing? The answer is yes, and it's getting worse. I've documented 6 disappearances in the New York subway system in the last 3 years that match the Platform Zero pattern. People who vanish on late-night trains, last seen by witnesses who report the trains stopping between stations, strange music playing, and a feeling of overwhelming peace. But what's new, what's escalating, is that Platform Zero appears to be expanding. I've received reports from subway systems in other cities: Boston, Chicago, Washington, D.C., London, Tokyo, Paris. Always the same pattern. A station that appears on late-night runs, a platform full of people from different eras, an invitation to stay. Last month, I received an email from someone who wouldn't give me their real name. They claimed to be a current MTA employee with high-level security clearance. They told me that Platform Zero is not a ghost story. It's a real phenomenon that the Transit Authority has been monitoring and trying to contain for decades. According to this source, Platform Zero is what they call a temporal junction point, a place where different timelines intersect. The people trapped there are individuals who died in subway accidents across different decades, but their deaths occurred at the exact same geographical location, creating a kind of spiritual traffic jam. They're stuck between the moment of death and whatever comes after, and that in-between space manifests as Platform Zero. The source told me that the reason Platform Zero keeps appearing is because it's trying to balance itself. For every person trapped there, it needs to claim another to take their place, allowing the first person to move on. It's a queue. A terrible, supernatural queue. And it's been operating since the first subway death in New York City, which occurred in 1904 during the subway system's opening year. But here's the terrifying part. According to this source, the containment is failing. The barriers between Platform Zero and the normal subway system are breaking down. What used to be random appearances every few years are now happening multiple times per month. And it's not just late-night trains anymore. There have been daytime sightings. Passengers reporting strange stops, seeing crowds on platforms that shouldn't be there, hearing announcements for Platform Zero during their morning commute. The MTA is allegedly working with government agencies and independent researchers who specialize in paranormal phenomena to develop a solution. But so far, nothing has worked. They've tried sealing entrances. They've tried disrupting the power grid to that section of the system.
They've even tried conducting religious ceremonies at the site. Nothing stops the appearances. And here's what keeps me up at night. My source told me that they've detected a pattern in the disappearances. Every person who vanishes at Platform 0 has something in common. They're all people who, in the weeks before their disappearance, experienced a significant loss. A death in the family, a devastating breakup, a life-changing failure. It's as if Platform 0 can sense grief, can sense people who are already feeling disconnected from the world, and it calls to them specifically. It offers them peace, an end to pain, a place where time doesn't move forward and loss can't touch you anymore. But that peace is a trap. Because once you step onto that platform, once you accept that invitation, you become part of the queue. You become one of the faces waiting for the next train, hoping that someone else will take your place so you can finally move on. I wanted to verify this information, so I did something probably stupid. I started riding the F train late at night, specifically the runs that pass through the areas where Platform 0 has been most frequently reported. I did this for 2 weeks straight, always on the last train of the night, always alone in the car when possible. Nothing happened for 13 nights. But on the 14th night, March 15th, 2024, exactly 5 years after Raymond Torres disappeared, something changed. I was on the 11:45 p.m. train, sitting in the last car. There were only 3 other passengers. The train was running normally, making all its usual stops. But as we pulled away from West 4th Street, I felt it. A change in air pressure. A slight vibration that was different from the normal train movement. And then, the train started to slow down. We were between stations. The lights in the car flickered, and through the window, I saw it. Platform 0. It looked exactly as it had been described to me. Art Deco tiles, old-fashioned benches, vintage advertisements. And the people. God, the people. There were so many of them. Dozens, maybe hundreds. All eras of clothing, all ages. All standing perfectly still, facing the train. The train stopped. The doors didn't open, but I could see the platform clearly. And then, one of the figures moved. A young woman, couldn't have been more than 25, wearing a 1970s-style dress. She walked to the window where I was sitting. She placed her hand on the glass, and she mouthed words I could lip-read. "Please help us." Behind her, the crowd began to move. Slowly, they all raised their arms, pointing at the train, pointing at me. And I heard it, not through my ears, but inside my head. A voice. Actually, hundreds of voices speaking as one. The train is late. The train is always late. But you're here now. You can help us leave. Just step onto the platform. Just take our place. It won't hurt. You'll feel peace. Don't you want peace? I did want peace. God help me, in that moment I wanted it more than anything. I felt my hand reaching for the door, even though the doors were closed. I was going to try to open them manually. I was going to step out onto that platform. But then something stopped me. One of the other passengers in the car, an elderly man I hadn't paid much attention to, grabbed my arm. He said, "Don't listen to them. They lie. There's no peace there. Only waiting. Forever waiting." The train lurched forward. The lights stabilized. Platform 0 disappeared behind us as we entered the normal tunnel. When we arrived at the next station, I looked for the elderly man to thank him.
but he was gone. The other passengers said there had been only 3 people in the car. Just me and them. No elderly man. I checked the subway security footage later through my contacts in the MTA. The footage shows me sitting alone in that car, reaching toward the door. It shows me stopping as if someone grabbed my arm, but there's no one there. Just me, freezing in mid-movement, then sitting back down. To the camera, it looks like I simply changed my mind. But I felt that hand on my arm. I heard that voice. Someone or something pulled me back from Platform Zero. After my experience, I became obsessed. I needed to understand what Platform Zero really is. I spent weeks going through historical records, accident reports, missing person cases, and I found something that changed everything I thought I knew about this phenomenon. In the New York City Municipal Archives, there's a collection of documents from 1902, 2 years before the subway system officially opened. These documents detail the early planning stages of the subway, including locations that were considered for stations but ultimately rejected. One of these rejected locations was designated Station Zero, a kind of template station that engineers used to test construction techniques. According to the documents, Station Zero was built in 1902 as a full-scale prototype. It was constructed deep underground, in a location that would later be incorporated into the subway system. The plan was to use it for testing and then repurpose it as an actual station once the subway opened. But something went wrong during the testing phase. In September 1903, a group of 32 workers were in Station Zero conducting a safety drill. They were simulating an emergency evacuation. But during the drill, there was a catastrophic structural failure. Part of the station collapsed. All 32 workers were killed instantly, buried under tons of rock and steel. The collapse was covered up. The families of the workers were told it was an accident at a different construction site. The bodies were never recovered. The collapse was too extensive, and the decision was made that attempting to retrieve the bodies would risk further collapse and endanger more lives. Station Zero was sealed. The subway route was adjusted to bypass that section entirely, and the incident was erased from official history because the investors and city officials didn't want anything to damage the public perception of the subway before it even opened. But here's the crucial detail I found in a personal journal belonging to one of the engineers who survived because he wasn't in the station during the drill. His name was William Ashford, and his journal is now held by his great-great-granddaughter in Connecticut. I traveled there to read it. William wrote that in the weeks following the collapse, workers in nearby tunnels reported hearing sounds coming from the sealed section. Voices, screams, the sound of picks and shovels, as if someone was trying to dig out from the inside. This continued for 3 months, then stopped. But William wrote something else that made my blood freeze. He wrote that he began seeing the dead workers. Not in the tunnels, but on the streets above. They would appear in crowds, always wearing their work clothes, always covered in dust and blood. They never spoke. They just stood there watching him. And every time he saw them, they were standing near a subway entrance. William wrote his last journal entry on December 31st, 1904, 6 months after the subway officially opened. He described boarding one of the first public trains for a late-night ride. He wrote, "I need to see it. I need to see if they're still there, if they've found a way back."
I think they've been waiting for the trains to start running. I think they've been waiting to go home. William Ashford never returned from that train ride. His body was found 2 weeks later, in the tunnel near where Station Zero had been sealed.
The official cause of death was ruled a suicide, though there were inconsistencies in the autopsy report that the family always disputed. Now, connect the dots with me. 32 workers died at Station Zero in 1903. Countless more people have died in subway accidents in the 120 years since the system opened. Every time someone dies in the subway, especially in a sudden traumatic way, could their consciousness, their spirit, whatever you want to call it, be drawn to Station Zero? The original death site. The first tragedy in the system. And if that's true, then Platform Zero isn't just a haunted station. It's a collection point. A gathering place for every soul that's been lost in the New York subway system for over a century. We're not talking about dozens of people. We're talking about potentially thousands. I cross-referenced subway death statistics with Platform Zero sighting reports. The correlation is undeniable. Sightings of Platform Zero spike in the weeks following major subway accidents. After the Union Square derailment in 1928 that killed 5 people, there were 12 reported Platform Zero sightings in the following month. After the Malbone Street wreck in 1918, the worst rapid transit accident in US history, which killed at least 93 people, Platform Zero sightings were reported almost nightly for 3 months. It's not random. It's not a ghost story. It's a phenomenon directly connected to death in the subway system. And it's cumulative. Every new death adds to the population of Platform Zero, making it stronger, making it appear more frequently, making it more desperate to claim living passengers to somehow balance the cosmic equation. But I haven't told you the worst part yet. The part that made me seriously consider never riding a subway again. The part that suggests this isn't just a New York problem, but something much bigger. 3 days ago, I received a package at my apartment. No return address, no postmark. It was just there when I came home, sitting in front of my door. Inside was a file folder containing transit authority documents from cities around the world: New York, London, Paris, Tokyo, Moscow, Mexico City, Shanghai. Every major city with an extensive subway system. Each set of documents detailed the same thing: a prototype or test station built in the early days of that city's subway development. And in each case, there was a catastrophic accident during construction. Workers killed, bodies never recovered, stations sealed and erased from official records. London's prototype station, built in 1862, collapsed, killing 47 workers. Tokyo's test station, built in 1925, was destroyed in a fire that killed 38 workers. Paris's experimental station, built in 1898, flooded during construction, drowning 52 workers. And in every city, there are reports of ghost stations, platforms that appear on late-night trains, crowds of people from different eras trying to board, passengers disappearing. This isn't unique to New York. It's a global phenomenon. Every major subway system has its own version of Platform Zero, and they're all getting more active. The documented sightings and disappearances are increasing worldwide. But here's the twist that kept me up all night. Included in this mysterious package was a research paper. It wasn't published in any journal I could find. The author was listed as Dr. Elena Kozlov, the daughter of Victor Kozlov, the foreman who first discovered the sealed Platform Zero in 1952. Dr. Kozlov became a physicist specializing in theoretical temporal mechanics. And this paper, written in 2015, just before her death, proposed a terrifying hypothesis. What if these sealed stations, these places of mass traumatic death, created permanent tears in space-time? What if the intense emotional and physical energy of sudden, simultaneous deaths, combined with the specific electromagnetic properties of underground spaces and subway electrical systems, generated anomalies that exist outside normal time? Dr. Kozlov theorized that Platform Zero and its equivalents worldwide are places that exist in all time periods simultaneously. That's why the people trapped there are from different eras. That's why the stations appear pristine even when they should have decayed. They're not in our timeline. They're in a pocket dimension that intersects with our reality only under specific conditions. Late at night, when electrical usage in the subway system reaches certain frequencies, when the trains run on particular schedules that match the schedules that were running when the original accidents occurred. And here's the truly terrifying implication. Dr. Kozlov calculated that these temporal anomalies are expanding. Each new death in the subway system feeds energy into them. Each appearance, each sighting, each near miss where someone almost steps onto Platform Zero but doesn't, actually weakens the barriers between the anomaly and normal reality. She predicted that by 2025, the barriers would become so thin that Platform Zero wouldn't just appear randomly. It would become a permanent station, a place that exists on the maps, a destination that trains would be forced to stop at, whether the conductors wanted to or not. And when that happens, the thousands of souls trapped there would be able to leave, but not to move on to whatever comes after death, to return to the world, to take the places of the living, to finally ride the train beyond Platform Zero. Dr. Kozlov's paper ended with a warning. We built our cities on graves and called it progress. We dug through the earth, disturbed the dead, and created pathways for them to return. Platform Zero is not haunted. It's a door. And we've been opening it wider with every train we run, every track we lay, every tunnel we dig. Soon, that door will open completely, and what's been waiting on the other side will come through. The paper was dated October 15th, 2015. Dr. Elena Kozlov died on October 16th, 2015. She was found on the tracks of the F train near West 4th Street. The official ruling was suicide, but her research notes, which were in her apartment, were never found. The only copy of her paper is the one in the package I received. And attached to that paper was a handwritten note. Recent, the ink was fresh. The note said, "You've been chosen to tell this story. Now you're connected to it. Platform Zero knows your name. It will call you again. Next time, you won't have someone to pull you back. We're all running out of time. Every city, every subway, every night. The trains keep running, and the door keeps opening. A friend who cannot leave. So, here we are. I've told you everything I know about Platform Zero. The question is, what do we do with this information? Do we stop riding the subway? Do we warn people? Do we demand that transit authorities acknowledge what's happening? Or do we accept that some doors, once opened, can never be closed again? I don't have answers. What I have are facts. Documented disappearances, eyewitness testimonies, historical records, scientific theories, and my own experience looking through that window at Platform Zero and feeling the overwhelming pull to step through. Since that night, I've noticed something. When I ride the subway now,
Even during the day, I see things other passengers don't seem to notice. A flicker in the tunnel that looks like a lit platform. A face in the window reflection that isn't mine. The faint sound of 1920s music playing under the modern announcements. And twice now, I've received subway cards in the mail, just like Tyler Chen, loaded with one fare, expiration date, December 31st, 1929. I don't know what that means, but I know this. Platform Zero is real. It's waiting, and it's patient. It's been collecting souls for over a century, and it's getting stronger.
So the next time you're on a late-night train and the lights flicker, and you feel the train slow down between stations, and you see a platform that shouldn't be there, a platform with crowds of people in old-fashioned clothes, all standing perfectly still, all watching your train with desperate, hungry eyes. Remember this story. Remember that they'll call to you. They'll promise peace. They'll tell you it's just one stop, just a quick exit, just a moment of rest. Don't listen. Keep your eyes forward. Don't look at the platform. Don't acknowledge the people waiting there. And whatever you do, if the doors open, don't step out. Because Platform Zero isn't a station. It's a trap. And once you're there, the only way to leave is to convince someone else to take your place. The train will move on. The platform will disappear. And you'll arrive at your destination safely. But you'll know the truth now. You'll know that somewhere in the tunnels beneath the city, in a place that exists in all times and no time, there's a station that's always waiting. Platform Zero. The station that shouldn't exist, but does. And maybe, on some late night when you least expect it, your train will stop there too. This is Marcus, signing off. Watch your stops. Trust your instincts. And if you see Platform Zero, just keep moving. Oh, and one more thing. If you're listening to this on the subway right now, what station are you approaching? Check the map. Make sure it's supposed to be there. Because I just got a text from an unknown number. It says, Platform Zero now arriving. Doors opening on the right. This is your stop. This has always been your stop. And I'm not even on a train.